Special meeting of August, what is today, 30th, is in session. We have two items on the agenda. Are there any other changes or any changes? All right, then our agenda is approved as submitted. First item is you all.
You can handle your own introductions.
Okay. I was going to say, Mayor, for the TV audience, this is Denver University.
Well, it's part of Denver University. They're pretty much bigger than this.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Clarification.
Kelly, do we have the
screen behind is blank.
Here we are, and we have a crew here from the University of Denver.
Hi, my name is Andrew Yessen. I am pursuing my master's degree in advertising management, and I'd like to let my colleagues introduce themselves real quick for you all.
Hi, I'm Charmaine Thompson, and I'm pursuing a master's degree in marketing, and I've worked in the field of sales and marketing for over 10 years.
I'm Jeff Rideout. I'm about a quarter away from having an MBA with a concentration in marketing, and throughout this quarter and several others in the past, I've studied brand management through coursework and internships.
My name's George Keff, and I have three reasons to be here. One, I was in the financial services industry, management position for about 15 years. Second, I am giving credibility to the people with gray hair or more. And third, I'm wearing official Littleton colors. I'm the only one that was able to do that here, so thank you. Andy.
guys? Before you guys get going, just for context, because we've got people watching on television or streaming on the web. I don't know if Dr. Johnson, if you want to say something, but just in a general sense, this is the culmination of activities that started in February of 2010 when Council, at our annual workshop, started discussing marketing in relation to the city. And over a period of time, a number of us reached out to Dr. Johnson, who's chair of the marketing department at the Daniels Graduate School of Business at DU. And what ultimately came of those conversations was the creation of a graduate school marketing course called Marketing in the Public Sector that utilized Littleton as a test case. So essentially, the teams are going to come in or have come in now and essentially done what could be considered to be a marketing and a branding audit. And I guess let me then defer to you. This is the result of all that work, and you can certainly embellish that a lot better than I can.
Well, you stole a lot of my thunder there, Bruce. Anyway, you're right. We've been working with the city for quite some time, and I have a number of my class members here. Could you just raise your hands if you're a part of the class? So they've all put in a tremendous amount of work on this for you. We are delighted to be here because we often use clients, and we're thrilled that the City of Littleton agreed to be a client. And we also appreciate very much all of the time that you all have given to us with the taping that we did earlier and the incessant emails and phone calls and the things that if you've come into our classes online, we appreciate that. Surprisingly, both of these classes were delivered online. So we didn't have an actual classroom setting. We were actually working through electronic means to deliver information back and forth to each other. And so we actually have two classes. The first class started as the brand management class, as the public sector marketing class. And then we decided, too, that we would have a brand management class and do a brand audit of the city as well. So what you're seeing tonight is the sort of the final recommendations that we came up with that came out of both classes. The first class really had to become familiar with, in general, the marketing that Littleton does. And the second class then took a look at some deeper issues around branding and what that looks like. You'll find that our delivery team today talks to you about what marketing is and how it works with a city. And then they've got some real interesting recommendations, I think. I would also like to introduce a couple more folks who are here. One is Michael Myers, and he's a professor at the University of Denver with me, and his specialty is web design and mobile marketing and the like. And then we have Lena Iturian in the white back there, who's our PhD student that's been working with us in class as well. So thanks to you all, and with that, I will turn it over to our presenters.
And presenters, I don't know if you noticed, but we have a screen down here that we can see, so we may be if we're looking here and not there, it doesn't mean we're ignoring your presentation.
No worries. First off, the agenda for this evening. First, we'd like to discuss the project itself, and then the research team that made this all possible over the past few months. Next, we'd like to talk about the findings, what we found about your city and what we thought could make it better, the recommendations, and the next steps that you can take. And some of those you can implement as soon as tomorrow, if you'd like, or tonight. When we first started this project, many of us didn't know a lot about the city of Littleton. Myself, I had never been to the city before until this class, and I was very positively surprised by the city itself. Like, you have a wonderful place to grow a family, to live. It's great features for all kinds of people, but what we found was that a lot of people just aren't very aware of all the great things that are going on here. And we felt that through some of our recommendations that could change. What is marketing? Marketing central concern is producing outcomes that the target market values. This is very important because the patrons and those who are potential patrons of this city are very valuable in many different ways. They make your city a fun place to live, to come spend an afternoon, and also they pay taxes and shop and do all sorts of things in the city. While we were discussing this, we found that there are 3 key groups we should focus on, and they were businesses, visitors, and residents. Residents are those that live within the city limits, that pay taxes, that had their kids go to your great school system. And the city of Littleton, we found, was 42,000 strong. You're a very smart city. You're well above the national average in terms of high school diplomas, bachelor's degrees, and just a very potential for a very thriving place to live. Our next audience was visitors. Visitors are very important also because they come down and they spend money and they tell others about how great your city is. We found 3 key groups amongst visitors, and they were those that came down to shop at places like Aspen Grove, historic downtown Littleton, and other fun places that kind of spend the day and an afternoon. Another key group are those that use bike trails, walking trails, running trails, because as we know, a lot of people in Colorado are really into that sort of thing and like to be active and stay healthy. A third key group are those that come down and use your free services such as your museum, your library, which is very rare these days. A lot of cities like this don't have free accommodations like that, which is a very positive thing. The third and final target audience are businesses. Businesses are a bit different because their sole purpose is to attract visitors and residents to come and spend money and to be profitable within the city limits. Businesses are also very aware of what the city does in terms of licensing and permits, and is also very aware of other issues such as parking. Over the past few months, we've had a lot of collaboration with the city council and staff. Many of you I know via text, but not by face, but just through discussion boards and through the phone. And I've seen some of you on web chats, things like that. And it's really been fantastic, just the way we could all come together and find solutions to make the city an even better place.
Well, thank you again for having us. And I'd like to say that of all this work, one of the outcomes has been the 2 reports, which I'm sure you'll see. They're available both electronically and in print. And from those reports, we've pulled some key recommendations that we'd like to present to you now. The first of those is regarding your website, and I'll start with that. So, first of all, I'd like to begin by pointing out some very positive things about the site, mainly content-wise. One thing I ran across on your site is the crime reports application that you have. It's very interactive. There's a lot of data there. It seems like something that likely is and would be a useful tool for many citizens in Littleton. The second thing I'd like to point out is the content that Kelly and Kathy put so much work into posting and is obviously generated by these meetings and other sources as well. I guess one point I'll make here is that with these great pieces of content, we feel they represent costs that you've already sunk into the website. There's an actual dollar amount paid for crime reports. There's an amount in human capital, the hours that Kelly and Kathy and you all put into generating this content. And we feel that if you give people an easier way to access it, it represents a leveraging of those sunk costs, if you will. Another thing I'd like to compliment you on is your Juggle.com Top Local Government Website Award. However, I'll also say several other local governments did win that award as well, including Arvada, Boulder, Centennial, and Thornton. So I would say that an improvement to your website represents a chance to differentiate against those other local competitors. So let's just take a look at the current site. And this is not current as in today, but it's the layout that you'll see there. You'll see the postings there that come down as one is placed. It pushes the next down, lower. There's obviously navigation items there to the side. And I'll reference this a couple times throughout my slides here. So there's a tool that Kathy and I were actually discussing before we started the presentation that I'd like to kind of present to you all. It's a free function through Google called Google Analytics. What it does is it allows you to track the usage of your site page by page to see how often it's being used and how it's being used. We have some specific data for the site pulled over a 6-month period that I'd like to show to you now. So let me draw your attention first to the upper left. That's how many hits the site received as a whole in this 6-month period. I'd like to sort of point out further to the right there, the upper right, the bounce rate. First, let me kind of define what the bounce rate refers to. The bounce rate is a term for when someone visits the site and leaves almost immediately without clicking through to another part of the site. 72.44% is the percentage for the site as a whole. Now, I'll kind of go into the homepage itself now. For the homepage itself, the bounce rate is 75%, and the average time spent on the homepage is 30 seconds. So what we feel is that, sort of as a metaphor here, we wonder if it would be acceptable if 75% of people calling the City of Littleton or visiting a municipal building, leaving without having their inquiry responded to, would be acceptable. So I'll move into design now. We've one of our classmates actually has come up with a concept here, if you will. So the colors and that type of thing are not necessarily important, but sort of the structure is what he had envisioned. So I'll sort of go through it piece by piece. What we have most critically is at the top, there are 3 audiences, the ones that Andy mentioned, that you can choose as your self-identification. So in this case, and we'll go through each of these, there's the residence page that's been selected and brought up. So we have to the far right some FAQs and a search function. So that's a way of navigating the site if what you see there isn't representative of what you're looking for necessarily. We also have a news feed. You'll see it right in the middle. It's under News Blog. And we sort of envision that as a way of getting those valuable pieces of content posted by Kathy and Kelly and possibly others to the target audience so that relevant information stays available to those audiences even after other postings would have superseded it on the main page that you have now. Now, the final thing I'll point out is, again, with Google Analytics, you can tell where people are going most. So at the bottom there, we have several blocks where you could put anything you wanted. So the things that residents go to most would be down there, presumably. Here's the businesses page. So you have some similar functions. You have, again, the search function up there. And just as a side note, we imagine that would be the Google search tool, which is actually free as well. And it's just a very powerful way to search the content on the site. But again, you have all of the functions below, one of which is economic gardening. And just as another sidebar, For economic gardening, the bounce rate on that page is 83%. So we feel that with the next phase here, I'm going to show you an idea we have for how you could lower your bounce rates throughout the site, including the economic gardening page. Here's the visitors page. So this is just a concept again for what we think might go on there. What we have there is parking in the city. We also have shopping, you'll see down there. And again, those can be changed depending on demand by people coming to the site. Let's go into the layout that we imagine as people click through the site. So we feel this is a fairly intuitive layout. We kind of liken it to a bulleted outline. So here you have your main headings. So here we are on the residence page. And now I want to click on the library page to see more about that. So this would be the subheadings, totally specific to the library still. So with this, we imagined that residents clicking on the library page wouldn't receive any content they didn't want. Everything here is related to the library, which they just self-selected into on the page. Finally, a third level of subheadings. So if they clicked on programs here, they'd be taken to this page with library-specific, program-specific information. The technical term for this is progressive disclosure, which I don't know if anyone is interested in that. But anyways, we also realize that these are sort of possibly ideas you're interested in, but there are some constraints to be dealt with, one of which is cost. We would like to, first of all, recommend the use of student interns as a possible way of mitigating those costs. Now, we feel that they could do a lot of the legwork at a lower dollar amount than your current staff might be able to. So that would be in regard to researching regulations, social media updating, but also we feel that they could take a large portion out of the cost of the site redesign just because of the way that costs are weighted in a redesign of a site. And for that, I'd actually like to turn to one of our experts. Our professor, Michael Myers, can tell you a little more about that structure.
So one of the biggest hurdle you have as far as redesigning the site is moving the content from where it is now to the new site. As far as the design of the site, you can get it relatively inexpensively. Sorry, thank you very much. It's my coach.
So that's known as peer assistance.
Exactly. I thought it was going to go through my head. So, but crowdsourcing models, businesses such as 99 Designs and Design Crowd and CrowdSpring, you can submit your needs as far as a site redesign, and you will get bids on those designs. And you can choose whichever one you want. The best design, the lowest cost, whatever that happens, whatever that happens to be, whatever your focus is. And then from there, after you have those design templates, so most sites, most good sites are 2 to 3 templates, and that's about it. And that doesn't cost much. And if you ask for those designs to sit on top of a freeware CMS, such as Drupal, or there are a bunch of others that are open source, but they're a CMS so that a non-technical person can manipulate content. Then you have the interns come in and move content from the older site to the new site, and the cost reduction is tremendous. So, again, submitting the site for redesign to 99 Designs or Design Crowd or CrowdSpring, and then using interns to move over content. The biggest cost is going to be moving the content.
Thank you, Michael. All right, another idea for how to mitigate those high costs is we see the possibility for a value exchange, possibly with a local company. This is a site I stumbled across. This is the banner for a website that's actually live on the web. And as you'll see, there's quite a bit of town pride represented there. This is a web design company's not homepage, but sort of sales page. So they are proud of being in Littleton, Colorado. I feel, and I believe my teammates here also feel, that there is potential there for maybe some sort of a hometown discount. Obviously, someone Littleton proud might be interested in helping the city of Littleton with their website redesign. However, there's another key piece to this with a bit more of financial motivation for this company. On this page, if we were to have the full thing pulled up, and we don't because the text is very small and hard to read, they talk about their desire to serve companies in this area, so Littleton, Highlands Ranch, Centennial, local companies primarily. We feel that as the city of Littleton, you have a great amount of access to these businesses, and perhaps your visibility to them could be enough incentive for this company to want to work with you, so they could perhaps then work with these businesses. So with that, I'd like to actually move into our next recommendation, which is related to branding.
Good evening. The next recommendation that I want to talk about this evening is branding. And branding is very important because it really is the identity of a company, a product or service, or in this case, the City of Littleton brand. And branding can take a number of different forms. It can be a slogan, a logo, a nickname. Those are just a few examples of the way people are able to identify with your brand, the City of Littleton. You can see here some examples of branding that's currently taking place within the City of Littleton. And this is fantastic because it shows that the city is actively involved in actually branding and wanting to have recognition and for their citizens. But an opportunity that we identified for improvement is in the area of consistency. So if you look at some of the images on your screens, you can see that there's a logo on the municipal building. There's yet a different logo on the Littleton Public Schools, another logo on the Littleton Fire vehicle, and yet another on the Police Department vehicle. So what we propose is creating one logo and implementing that across the city, using it on everything. So when people see that particular logo, they automatically associate it with the City of Littleton. And this is something that could be easily implemented in some instances. In some areas, it would take a little bit more time. So for example, you could immediately agree upon a logo and use that on your social media, your Facebook page. You could use it in your emails, on your website, on your letterhead. However, for some of the bigger things such as your municipal building or on your vehicles, this would be done on an as-needs basis. So as the time arose to change the lettering on one of your businesses, at that point in time, you would use the new logo. When it comes time to repaint a city vehicle or purchase a new vehicle, it would then have the new city logo. So there are some quickly implemented changes and then some that would be gradual. But the key is consistency. Another way to further brand the city would be to do some sub-branding. So for instance, you have the same logo for everything. However, you may want to do some differentiation. You typically would associate maybe the color red with the fire department. So maybe the logo for all fire vehicles and fire department correspondence would be in red. Blue for the police department. Green for parks and recreation. So you have a consistency in branding, but you also have some differentiation. Next, I want to discuss some very easily implemented solutions. Slogans. We thought it would be a really easy to implement idea to have a Name That Slogan contest for the City of Littleton. There's a lot of slogans that probably come to mind for cities: the Big Apple, the Mile High City, the Big Easy. As soon as you hear those slogans, you know what cities they're affiliated with. And it doesn't have to just be large cities. Here you see the City of Golden has their own slogan. So we thought a Name That Slogan contest would be a great opportunity to involve citizens, increase brand awareness, pride in the city of Littleton, and sense of community. Very easy to do. The final recommendation I'm going to discuss is an I Love the City of Littleton Because campaign. And we thought this, again, would be a great opportunity to remind people of what they love so much about the city. No one loves your brand as much as you do. With it being back to school time, great way to involve the children, maybe have a contest in the schools, allow kids to write 1 or 2 sentences about what they love so much about the city of Littleton, draw some pictures to illustrate what they described in their sentences, have a committee choose the best illustrations and reasons why they love the city of Littleton, and maybe 2 or 3 classrooms will be rewarded with an ice cream social. And then that could also be done on a wider level with the adults in the community and the businesses in the community. They could submit reasons why they love the city of Littleton on Facebook, on the website, maybe mail in reasons why they love the city of Littleton. And again, they could be rewarded with something like a light rail pass. So you are highlighting the services and great benefits of the city of Littleton, and then also rewarding the people who entered the contest. So those are just a few of the ideas that we thought would be really easy to implement, quick solutions, low cost. If you want to find out more in-depth information on those recommendations, they're in the report that you have in front of you. And there's probably about 40 or 50 more similar recommendations that you may find have valuable application to your city.
It's not in front of you. The full report is some 130 pages per report. So there's 2 of those, and we have bound ones that Kelly is right now looking through, I think, over there. So my apologies. What we have in front of you is just a summary of the slides, and then we have some interesting ideas about budget that we came up with. I didn't want anybody to be confused looking for something that really is not there. Sorry.
So now we get the easy part where we do some recap and talk about some issues in a little bit more detail. So what does marketing look like for Littleton? Well, you have the 3 major target groups of the residents, businesses, and the visitors that you want to show value to. And the reason that you want to do that is pretty much everybody starts out being a visitor to the city, and if they like what they see, they might, do some shopping there. They may move to the city. They may open a business here. So it's real important that we show, our best foot forward. A lot of what we looked at, you have done a lot of the legwork for the presentation of it. It's just that with a little bit of fine tuning, I think we believe it would be much more effective. And the good part about that is that the fine tuning part actually isn't a major part of the cost structure. So some of the key points that we had was, redesign the website, and what's that going to represent for you? Well, in this particular case, you have some of your citizens that are now really enjoy doing a lot of their business and taking care of things that they want to with the city by going to the website. And at this time, you have a lot of data on the website. It just seems as though it's not easy to find. And so the proposals that we give you is ways that it can be more streamlined and relatively inexpensive. And when, I guess some of that points is how much are you talking about as far as relative. In some of the cases, as far as the website's concerned, I think you would be talking about the entire process taking a good bit less than $50,000 to accomplish. But I'm probably wrong with that. Michael can fix whatever I just said that was wrong. In the case of the branding, there's some of the situations like the signs that you have as you enter Littleton.
just adding welcome to the top of the signs, I think might add something to it, and I would believe that that would be extremely minimal cost to doing that. What we were talking about with the branding and the consistency, we understand that the fire department or the police department may want to have a different color scheme than what had been decided on as the official red and black. But as you'll see in just a minute, right here, you could do green on the city services vehicles. You could do blue on the police cars, but you would still have that same font and look to it. Now, to go back to the brochures that you see there on the bottom. Brochures, you have a brochure, a walking brochure of your city, and that's located in a couple of places, I think at DIA and downtown and the tourist centers. But what we had as an idea is to take that brochure and augment it to include restaurants instead of only the attractions that the buildings and such that you have. And so to highlight the shopping and highlight the restaurants and highlight the bars and restaurants that you have. And what we would do is that you could co-brand that with, say, the RTD, and you would issue in that packet, in that brochure, a discounted coupon, or in fact a free RTD pass to ride for that day, and you would be able to co-brand with the businesses to offer possibly like a 5% discount to customers with the RTD pass ticket for purchases that they made on that day. So the businesses would be interested in it because you would be bringing additional visitors to the city. The RTD would be interested as far as some of their revenue, and your businesses would be happy. And also you would, the concierge, you could, after designing the package, you could have sort of a junket where you invite all of them to come one weekend and you show them, your downtown area, and then that kind of incents them to tell others about it that stay in the hotels downtown. Next steps. Biggest next step, biggest elephant in the room. You got to decide if you want to do any type of active marketing. Currently, marketing occurs about your city and about anything, whether you do anything about it or not. If you choose to direct the message that you're trying to get across, that we find to be much more successful in letting others do the marketing for you, because it may not be the message that you necessarily want to accomplish. So I believe that starts with the city council, and then from there, you can issue directives and so on and so forth. But what we've noted from some surveys that we have read and some other research, the research that we did and the research that's been provided to you in the last several years kind of says you have a wonderful city here, but not everybody knows about it. And specifically, not everybody in the metro area knows about it. And I understand that there's a couple of ways of looking at that. It's like, we have something good here, and I don't want to be overrun with all kind of people coming in and putting burdens on our infrastructure and so on and so forth. But actually, they're also help with your tax base as well. So it's smart growth. It's a way of defending your city for the higher tax revenues versus other cities that are doing marketing anyway. You have, in my opinion, a tremendous amount to offer versus, say, the previous airport that you had in the city. But they do a phenomenal amount of advertising. So it goes to show you that Stapleton can do a lot with what I think is way less than what Littleton has to offer. But that's my personal thing. Then you need to prioritize what you want to do. What we prioritized was, frankly, what we know best, which is the internet and social media. The big thing with that is that it seems as though the populations are moving that way anyway. So if you have all the data on your website, you win awards for it. Spending a little bit of money to redesign it to make it easier to use is going to be beneficial. It'll give all your city workers more time to be doing other things than answering the phone, or they can answer the phone without having 3 of them answer the phone because there'll be less people calling. Contacts. Several of the people in front of me had talked about what you need to do to go forward. Well, frankly, you have some relatively cheap labor when it comes to interns. You're not paying benefits. You don't even necessarily need to have a desk and a computer because they have those things at their house. And they can keep your Facebook and Twitter pages and your internet page updated, which is vital to keep people interested in going back there. So we encourage you to ask us or your local community college about ways that they can help you all to utilize what you already have, but in a cheaper way, and to assist your overworked city employees. And then finally, the last and easiest thing is just make a mandate and start and begin the process. And what we mentioned about the great thing about the website is that through Google Analytics, you don't pay for it, and you can see immediately the impact that it has. I mean, you can look next month and see if the rates have changed after you change the design. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for letting us talk to you about our ideas and open the floor to any questions you might have.
I have a question. You had indicated on the website, on the Google Analytics, about the bounce rate.
Yes.
So what are the numbers you would be shooting for on that?
Well, obviously the optimal number is 3 to 5%. It depends on how realistic that is. So it depends on the quality of search, right? So search is the new way to navigate things, right? So people don't look for City of Littleton homepage. They look for, licensed builders in City of Littleton, and then they come into your site and they hit a deeper section. So the point is you want that information to be fully developed and built out appropriately.
So what these bounce numbers are really saying is probably not so much that they're not staying on the site, it's that they are moving around trying to find their information.
Yeah,
no?
It means that they left the site. It means
They
they
leave the
came,
site.
they looked at it and went, not it, and left.
They left the whole site, not that page?
Left the whole site.
Okay.
Further question about
Sure.
Google Analytics.
Sure.
That's not really telling us the true bounce rate, is it? Isn't that telling us when somebody goes from the site back to Google?
No, it's just somebody left the site.
So how do they know?
There's about a 10-line piece of code that's installed on the website that Google reads from and allows it to track and tells you what essentially is happening on your website. So Google Analytics will tell you what the most popular pages are. So those navigational elements that were across the bottom, that is what Google Analytics told us were the most in-demand sections of the website.
But if someone were to type the URL in
Yeah.
and go to the page, they wouldn't be going through Google.
Yeah, it's not, and I understand the confusion. This, honestly, it has almost nothing to do with Google. It's just simply that it's Google's tool that's tracking your traffic that's on your site. That's all. I didn't have to go to the Google website. I could type in City of Littleton, and if I left right away, it would show up as a bounce rate. If I stayed for 5 seconds, it would show that you stayed for 5 seconds.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, but that's okay.
So, you know what? Honestly, if you take the Google out of it, it's just an analytics package that lets you see how people are navigating your site. Has really nothing to do with Google, except that's the brand that let you install the tool. That's the only thing.
Show the graph, how people are getting to the site?
Sure.
One
So
thought
are
on.
you, let me see if I can clarify this.
Sure.
Are you accessing statistics that we keep on our own website?
So different analytics packages. I think you do have an analytics package installed besides Google Analytics. And because the way technology is, you usually install at least 2 analytics packages and then compare the numbers. Now, if the other analytics package says your bounce rate is 5%, I would, and this is just because of woefully years of experience, trust Google more than anything else simply because they've got nothing to lose, right? You're not paying for the tool, so there's no reason to bake the numbers. So if you can look at down on your monitor right here, so the blue section, you've got roughly 56% coming from search engines, and then about 35% coming from direct traffic, which go to not necessarily the home page, but go directly to the site, right? Because they know they're familiar with the site and they have that information. And then, roughly 9% is coming from referring sites. So sites that may have a link to the City of Littleton website on their site. But this is, that package is essentially just telling you what that traffic is like on your website. They could come from Yahoo, and it will still show up on this tool.
And
Yes.
I suspect there's nothing that I'd like that they do, which would be, where do they go when they bounce off of us?
Yeah, there's no, some analytics packages will tell you that, the kind that cost a lot of money and take a long time to implement. They don't necessarily tell you that.
Because some of these could be accidental typing, right?
Completely. But a lot of time, could be another City of Littleton, right? So
Well, there are a
what
lot
we're
of them,
noticing
so-
is, though, because of Google's preview search, which means I type in something and it gives you recommendations on the end of that to see, are you meaning the City of Littleton in Texas or in Colorado? So those kinds of errors are happening less because Google is making recommendations. Say, did you mean this or this? So then I go, oh yeah, I mean Colorado. I had no idea there was another City of Littleton. So it's, and the bounce rates, they are what they are. And a lot of times too, honestly, it comes from, a lot of times, we talk in the report about progressive disclosure, which is people who are using the web don't necessarily want to read right away, but if they get to that 3rd level down, then they may want to read some content. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to jump in for a moment.
Hold on, this gentleman had a question.
No, go ahead. I can wait.
It's a different subject, so if you're
All right.
interested.
Yes.
I guess I wanted to have you chat a bit about maybe a couple of stages here. The companies that do, say, Amazon, for the sake of an argument, comes to mind as someone who obviously has a fairly extensive web presence.
Yes.
Do they would obviously go way deeper in terms of their website. I know you go into an Amazon site, and you search for a book or a piece of music.
Yes.
And it'll come back to you with suggestions based on whatever it's been able to glean from your past purchases, if not more.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how those attributes could maybe theoretically apply to something like the municipal environment.
Well, if you were cataloging, if you placed a cookie on that person, I don't want to get too technical, but there's a way to say this person has been here before, and these are the things that they looked at, and you can customize content for that person returning. You can do that. Now, depends on the target audience. Some people think that's spooky, for lack of a better way to say it. They go, okay, it's reading my mind, get me away from the computer. Or some people like it because they're like, these are my interests and I want to keep coming back and seeing these things. So longer term, you could do those sort of things with news items. So if this person comes back and clicks on this subject matter as far as news, Littleton news, you'd bring that up first for their specific site visit, right?
Are there other municipalities or governmental entities you're aware of that do anything that sophisticated?
No, not necessarily, because a lot of times a lot of it's based on, there's a real big myth about the homepage and that it's getting a lot of traffic and all that. A lot of times, if it is, it's because it's bookmarked.
Okay.
You know, the reason why the navigation is so simple in the redesign is because it can be, because Google is the primary navigation method to get to a lot of information, right? So I don't go to the homepage and do a search. If I'm on the site, I do a search, right? But a lot of times I'm searching about, licensed contractors, Littleton, City of Littleton, Colorado, and it takes me, 4 layers deep into the website. I may never see the homepage. So the point and the value that you bring is the timeliness and the relevancy of the information, and the benefit that you have is the content that you have is pretty much straight HTML, and I won't get into what that means, but, well, I'll get into the benefit. Google sees that really, really well. It reads into it really well. If I search City of Littleton, Colorado, and then the subject, it's going to take me 4 levels deep right now and do that. So in the redesign, those are the kinds of things that you need to consider when you want to keep that same content. Do I need to navigate through it, to it, by primary navigation? Maybe not. Maybe search, site search, and Google search is enough because, everybody's familiar with Google. I have a 92-year-old grandmother who's really good with Google.
What about the relationship between, say, the website and the Twitter and Facebook feeds?
Sure.
And I'd be fibbing if I said I fully understood the magnitude of those interactions, although they're obviously substantial in certain ways.
Sure. So I'll give you a little stat. So 60% of people that tweet to a brand, and I don't make these terms up, it's the business term.
Right, I understand.
60% of those people that tweet to a brand expect a response from that brand. And out of those people that get a response, 64% of those will continue to utilize that brand. Now, so the point is, there's a lot of power in as far as super users, people who are online all the time, people who never pick up the phone. People want all their information on a website, on a mobile device, and they want it easy to access. Mm-hmm. And they utilize Twitter as a great, you'd use it as distribution in this case, which is I'm going to send out a lot of information. So if I'm sending out emails to the people that live within Littleton, I'm also tweeting that same message with links back to the site. Okay. Because it's just another method of distribution. There's a growing number of people that say, I don't need email. All my connections are on Twitter, and I'm going to use that. And if it takes more than 160 characters, then I'm going to call them or text them directly. So
okay, would there be? And I forget the technical term for this. I want to say QPR, but I don't know if that's correct. It's the little thing where you scan something with a smartphone.
Yeah, QR codes.
QR code. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of times, so Aspen Grove right now has a pretty good QR code campaign going on. So you can scan the poster, and it's at the bottom. For those of you who don't know what a QR code is, it's like a barcode, but it's two-dimensional. It looks like checkers, but it's kind of messy. But you scanning behavior.
It's more like a Rorschach.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That's right. So you can scan it with your smartphone, and it'll take you to a specific section of the website. So a perfect example would be if you put something in print out about the 4th of July celebration, we saw a huge spike in your traffic to your website for 4th of July from mobile devices. Because what that means is where's the display at? Where's the fireworks display at? Because I don't know where it is. You could have them scan a QR code, and those kinds of things to get that information off of a mobile phone, because the majority of traffic that day was from mobile devices.
Okay. How would one, a lot of times when we start talking about money, you have to get into a conversation at some level about the quote-unquote project economics.
Sure.
So in other words, if we wanted to spend X, are there ways or how would one understand the potential quantification of the magnitude of what we're spending in terms of a return.
Yeah, a lot of times, and I think Steve's going to talk about some of that in a minute.
Okay,
What I
so
would say
that's
is
a segue?
Yeah, it's a perfect segue. What I would say, though, is the site, a redesign, because the bounce rate alone is a great way to reduce costs. Because, let's say that half those bounce rates were appropriate. In other words, I'm in the city of Littleton, Colorado. I need information. Whoa, I can't find it, and I'm going to make a call, right? So you're going to reduce that method of customer service if people can find it online, right? So let's say that it's 40% bounce rate. So I can reduce that. So that reduces costs, right? And then Steve's going to talk about ways to increase revenue via the site. I mean, it's definitely the level of sophistication of your constituents, very high, right? Okay. I want this tool, and I want it to be easy to use, and if it's not, I'm frustrated. Okay? So here's Steve to talk about my favorite thing, money.
Let me see. I think I can do fine without the microphone. I'm usually better without them than
No,
I am.
but
But the TV audience does.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So my name is Steve Brantz. I've actually been in finance for 14 years now. I'm a captain in the U.S. Army, and I run financial management for them, both here in the United States, and I've deployed a few times, managed them abroad. I took a look at your budget. I was actually part of the public sector marketing class, and then after that, I grew up in Littleton, so this project was near and dear to my heart. So what I decided to do was keep working on it even after the class was over while the brand management class was going on. So you'll notice in your packets, you have executive summaries that pop up after all the slides. The reason why they're not included in the reports over there or they're not included in the slides is because I worked on them after the project was already turned in. The first thing that I'm thinking is if you guys are trying to figure out anything you need to do, you're thinking about cost. How can we afford to do it in the current economic times that we have? How can we possibly justify spending money on marketing or spending money anywhere else when we've cut positions over the past year and when our revenue streams have gone down? I've included a number of different things. I'll give you a quick overview. I'm not a big believer in reinventing the wheel. So the different things I've included have been successful in different organizations. The first one is a CSI, or Cost Savings Initiative. This was actually successful in the U.S. Army. It was a way that we used in the U.S. Army to have subject matter experts in their area identify ways the department they worked in could run smoother. It rewarded the employees for doing so. That's just brief executive summary. I can refer you over to the program in the military. You know government documents very thick on how to explain it. The next is Grant Writing Initiative. That's been used by a number of different nonprofits. That's also been shown to be able to get federal dollars so that it's not coming directly out of your budget, but either coming out of the federal or state budgets for you. You'll also notice that I actually have a contact who told me the city of Inglewood has just redone their credit card processing. If you guys go out and look for bids, I was told from the city of Inglewood they saved about $20,000 a year. So that's another way you can potentially look at ways to cut some costs within your organization. But what you were asking about in terms of revenue, you have a phenomenal sales tax base. A small increase in the revenue you get from sales tax will make a phenomenal difference in your budget. A 1% increase from the 2011 budget, and as a city manager, I mean, that thing is amazingly large and complex, but it would equal out to $230,000 of increased revenue. That means that if one person out of 100, so I'm assuming each person spends the same amount of money, and just using that as an analysis. But if one more person comes and shops in Littleton, your revenue goes up by $230,000. So if the website redesign even makes it easier, where one person out of 100 decides because of the ease of the use of the site, or per 100. Right. Okay.
We figured it out eventually.
Right. So if the idea is if one person per 100 who would go to the site decides to come and shop, who wouldn't have come to shop before, then your revenue goes up by $230,000. So even a small miniature expenditure in comparison can create a great deal of, in terms of business terms, would be profit, but for you, revenue. And my further thought with this, when I was taking a look at everything, is you have a number of very profitable businesses in your area. I don't even know if you need to pay to have any of this stuff redone. You can leverage the businesses in your area. They benefit from any increase you receive also. I'm not recommending you tell them what to do, because obviously you're a city government, but giving them guidance or potentially offering them the opportunity to help encourage them to contribute might be able to increase your revenue significantly.
In terms of contributing, you mean money, or are you talking about trying to get them to link to the city's website for more information?
Well, it seems like both of those could be great opportunities. If it would automatically, if you, for example, one of the items included further on in the executive summaries is the idea of a date night in Littleton. One of the most successful, I don't know if any of you have tried during 5280 to get a reservation at a restaurant, but it is nearly impossible. Those restaurants don't experience that same amount of success. They just get a lot of visibility because everyone knows about 5280 and the program, and it's a buzzword, and then everybody decides that's the week when they're going to go out. And some restaurants have continued that on outside of the 1 week that they have. Offering up and using a similar mechanism and leveraging the different companies that you have, it might well be worth it for them to say, we'd really like to be a part of this, and we'd be willing to contribute to the redesign of the website, specifically to be part of this program. So there are a lot of different options. Obviously, it takes further, it's going to take a lot more analysis in terms of actually writing out how you'd want to detail it, but with the experience and the knowledge that all of you have as council members, I'm sure, especially with your staff, that you won't have any problem, and we're here at your service if we can help out in any way possible.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve, on that, which is getting to the revenue side. And, big benefits that would be hoped for in any kind of marketing is that some of the good word gets out to folks that aren't necessarily here, that don't even know the name in part. And the story that comes up is there's a business that's relocated from California to Centennial somewhere in the last 2 years. And the owner of the business said he really had a hard time finding out information about relocating a business to the South Metro Denver area. He said if it wasn't for his in-laws that had some interest in the business being here, probably wouldn't have found this as an area. Knowing that, at least as one story is out there, how do we get to the point where we reach people that might not know Littleton as a name, either to live here or to locate a business here, or possibly to come and visit that might not? And I know we're part of the Denver Visitor Center, but that's kind of that question that's out there.
Agreed. And what you're taking a look at is you have different targets. You have the residents, the visitors, and the businesses. An easy way to do that would be to create. I saw the brochure that you put together for it's the city manager position, or
the recruiting that we just did.
That was incredible. I mean, I read that and I wanted to apply for the position. I mean, and that's not even my career direction, but I still wanted to be the city manager after reading that. Having a brochure highlighting that to businesses would be excellent, but you don't even need to actively market. You can take that information and just make it an easy link up on one of the websites. It's just providing the information for what you already have, which after having grown up here and knowing this, it's a great city. And it's just providing that information so that people who are searching for it can find it and find it with ease, to where it's not complicated to do so, and an easier thing for them to grasp. And then, if you find, for example, it used to be in Albertsons, now I believe it's vacant up on the road. It's Platte and Bowles, correct?
Right, Platte Canyon and Bowles.
Roger. So at that point, if you have a brochure and you can coordinate with the owner of that premise and say, we have these brochures. If someone's coming and looking at your place and they're curious, you might want to hand this out to them. This highlights the advantages. So what level you decide is up to you, but having that information readily available is a powerful tool.
So another part of that answer is to make sure that that portion of your website is optimized for search engines. So if that business person had typed in, which is how everybody finds information, right? Gone to Google, typed it in and said, relocate my business to Colorado, relocate my business to Southwest Denver, Littleton, whatever those, you can put those search terms into your website, obviously specific to those pages, so that you get found. Because the more targeted the search is, the easier it is to get found, right? If you type shoes, that's going to come up with a lot of stuff. If you're typing relocate my business to Southwest Colorado or Southwest Denver, those terms can be on an organic level, not a paid level, but an organic level be owned, right? So that would be, and I'm sure that person would have loved to have that information, right?
Interesting business, too.
Yeah, and actually, an SEO, and that's one of the problems with Google being the primary. Nobody knows the secrets, of the algorithm, but you do the best you can. But those terms, quite honestly, are very basic and very simple. And over time, you can, it would be pretty easy to be in the first 2 pages if it's done right.
Could you talk, I think during the class conversation, you talked about some other kinds of things that don't cost too much money. You talked maybe about encouraging stores to have apps or the city to have apps. You also talked about taking advantage of the advertising, direct or indirect, that might come with the city involvement of events along the South Platte Trail and so forth. I mean, you had lots of great ideas, and I'm sure they're in the appendix of the big book, but maybe people would like to hear some.
So applications are kind of an emerging source of internet traffic. So we tend to think of the internet as websites, et cetera, but applications are plugging into the same basic information, right? So mobile applications and iPad applications, what we're seeing a lot of is iPad is really becoming the device to surf on for entertainment value, right? So in other words, at work, what's happening is the laptop is turning into solely a work machine. iPad is turning into the device that I look for information on that's specific to me after work. And then the mobile phone is kind of a smartphone is kind of a Swiss Army knife that you kind of walk around. It's got lots of tools that you can utilize. So iPad, which has only been out a little over a year, and there's only 16 million of them right now in the market, already generates 1% of all the internet traffic throughout the world. So that's not going to change. And so I think the opportunity for businesses to create applications that the city of Littleton can help promote and utilize. I mean, you guys have an Apple store here, which is an unbelievable thing, My family and I head to that store first before anywhere else because going to Cherry Creek is not a fun experience.
We'll pay your cab fare over there if you need it. So just give me a call.
Appreciate that.
I look at their numbers.
That's right. So I think a city of Littleton application to kind of the important thing to remember is that the iPad is a different tool. Okay, so I have a mouse and I have a keyboard. You can put an iPad in front of a 2-year-old, and and it works. They pick it up in about 2 seconds. So it's a much better experience. Businesses are selling twice as much product. So wineshopper.com has an iPad optimized website. They sell twice as much wine through that site as they do their standard website.
I hope that's not to the 2-year-olds.
No, that's milk.com. Sell a lot of milk. No, but the point is, I think it's a great point, which is, if you think of the internet as just being this massive amount of data, there's different ways to get that information. So a mobile device is one way, an iPad is another way. and a standard website on a computer is another way. But I think mobile applications are not going to go away, and with the benefits of HTML5, you're going to be able to write the code once and put it on multiple interfaces instead of I have to go code specific for iPhone, and then I've got to write code specific for Android, and then, and it's not fun. So I think that there's great opportunities for those kinds of things. And, the City of Littleton has a lot of, other than the Apple Store, a lot of amazing things going on, and I think it'd be, a great opportunity to partner with a business and say, we'd like to fully develop an idea with you and see what kind of traction we could get.
And another benefit, over there in the back of the packet, you'll see that there is a web developer listed, but the pricing on that is much higher, and that's because when I did my research outside the class, I didn't have the benefit of the subject matter expert that I have standing next to me right now. The crowdsourcing or portion where he said where you bid the idea out to a large number of people is going to reduce your cost significantly. And there are a number of different and I'll let him explain that a little bit more in 1 second. There are a number of creative ways. Every group that is part of your constituency, whether or not they're the residents, the visitors, or the business, are all interested in, they each have their own goals, but they want to see Littleton grow and become a better, nicer place. No one wants to see it deteriorate in any way. So you can really leverage a lot of the business and other festivals and other areas to help fund any of the expenditures that you're taking a look at. And I would think the real goal would be to increase your revenues without having any increase in expenditures. I mean, that's what I would shoot for. So, and I'll let him explain a little bit more about the crowd surfing. Really good pricing way.
I just wanted to say I've had a lot of experience with the crowdsourcing models for various businesses. You can select whichever designer you prefer, right? So we've done work with some designers in New Orleans, a couple in Florida, and then for larger contracts, we've done some work in Sri Lanka. So it's entirely up to you as to what your focus is and how much you want to pay and the quality of the design. But we've had a really good experience. So I don't want you to think that that's untested. As a matter of fact, one of the open source CMS tools out there is called, and again, I don't make these names up, it's called Drupal, and I believe the U.S. government, the feds, are using Drupal for a major portion of their website. So it's not some untested fly-by-night thing. I mean, the fact is it's tested and it works quite well. And it allows a lot of flexibility, specifically that tool.
I'm curious, I guess, just given this is, speaking for myself, I think it's great information. I really appreciate, obviously, the amount of effort and work you guys have put into this. I think it would be remiss if we didn't ask you from the standpoint of it being an educational experience. What did you, without going deep, what did you guys take away from the experience?
I'm going to go into private consulting after. No, I'm just kidding. I'll let my fellow students.
I didn't know that much about Littleton at all, and after doing a lot of research on it and coming out to Littleton, a darling little city. I mean, all of the surveys that we did and everything were about quaint, historic, small town feel. You have a lot of great things that people aspire to have, and I understand that you want to protect that. And I thought that was pretty charming from that standpoint. The Aspen Grove, that brings in a lot of revenue. That's more like you would find in other cities, So you have a little of all of it, and in a way, I think what's charming about it is that some of it is hidden. It's hard to. You have to either know somebody or somebody takes you to something in Littleton, and that's kind of appealing in a way. But if you're competing on these bigger scales where everything's, about the revenue basis of it, then you're going to have to work a different way into that, And what I learned that the city is a complicated thing to run. There was much more to it than I first thought.
Thanks, George. One of the textbooks that we read has an entire chapter titled, "No One Loves Your Brand as Much as You Do." Now, in the process of doing this project, we came to love your brand too. So I got to have the awakening that no one loved the brand as much as I did when I worked on the surveys with George. One of the questions involved prompting people with slogans or phrases about a city and asking them to identify the city identified with that phrase. One of those was the best place to raise kids in Colorado. Going out that morning, I thought, okay, for sure, 100% Littleton. Everyone is going to know that. That doesn't even belong on the survey, really. It's a non-question. But what I found was that that wasn't really true. So as much as I know it and felt it going out with the survey, just your average person on the street doesn't necessarily know it unless you push it to them. So I learned that.
Well, kind of like how I said earlier, I didn't really know much about the city of Littleton to start out with, and then I came down and just kind of took a look around the city to have somewhat of a clue before this class started, right? And I realized this is a great place. Like, it's better. I would prefer to come down here to go shopping than Cherry Creek. It's a lot less of a hassle, and the quality is just as nice. There are some great trails, so if I want to go on a bike ride or go running, I can come down here and still get out of the city. I mean, that's a great concept. Not to be like downtown running. I can be in the open air, and it's just a great place to be and a great place to live potentially. And I think a lot of people want to know about this. I think you could get a lot more people who want to come down and live here.
I really took my experiences in this class and applied it to my professional life. Really emphasized how important it is to brand. I work in consumer sales, and I work on a very mature brand. And the customers I'm talking to, they feel like they know everything that there is to know about the brand. And they love the brand. They truly do. But it's still so important to continue to reinforce what's good about the brand. Oftentimes, I'll talk to someone and they'll say, I absolutely love your brand. I don't need to hear anything else about it. I know about it. It's a product that's been around for over 50 years. And once you start to ask them questions, they really don't know as much as they think they know. And there's always an opportunity to further educate them about some of the offerings. And I find that once I get that opportunity to do that, you really get a customer for life. You really reestablish their pride in the brand. And so working on this project really honed that in for me.
Thanks very much.
Would any of the other students like to say something? I think...
Knowing that you don't have to.
Because in most of the marketing classes I've taken so far, you focus on marketing, more tangible products and services, as opposed to a city where it's not really tangible, but it's something that people are very intimately involved in, and it's a big part of their life. So I thought that that was a really interesting perspective of marketing to get out of this class.
I, on the other hand, actually come from a public sector background. I worked for Adams County for 2 years before I went back to get my MBA. And I did find myself marketing a lot. And me and my colleague, who were always marketing our program, realized that nobody else really did. And we were always pushing, you need to market it. And I was able to double our program in less than 2 years just by marketing it and really getting it out there. So I really found taking this class really reinforced that information that I already had. And I am a citizen of the city of Littleton, and I'm from the East Coast, so I'm used to these small towns that market a lot. So I found it interesting to see a city that is a lot more similar in the historic district to some of the East Coast cities that I am familiar with, and just the differences in the marketing techniques.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the time that you spent in this and the presentation. Very good.
Mr. Mayor, could we maybe get them all down in front so that wherever their families are, at some point they might see that they really did go to school?
Yeah, come down in front of the dais here, guys. This is the part where Doug's up in the booth up there. Okay, so if you wave to him up there, okay. He represents about 6 trillion people around the globe.
There you go.
And you can point to your professors for that, you know.
Well, it's better than that. It gets beamed out into space, right?
Yeah.
Who knows how many sentient beings are
we'll
getting
give you a hand. Get you on TV here.
And so
you'll be part of our marketing.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you very much again.
We appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you, Charmaine.
You want to make the motion?
I guess I wanted to, I think a couple of things, I guess, per the presentation, I think, me personally, that it would be some time well spent to maybe request staff digest this information and potentially come back with some recommendations in terms of website redesign and, what would be a plan that staff might recommend in terms of assimilating some of the concepts we've heard here tonight and others into a functional plan of action as far as our website redesign are concerned. I guess I'd make that as a motion, or we can just talk about it.
Second.
Staff plan for the website. How about that?
Okay. Staff report, analyze the presentation and report back on the website.
With recommendations based on what they've heard.
Council, I'll just point out for the record that when you read your proposed 2012 budget, there is a proposal from Kelly to dramatically update the website. So I don't know to what degree that will address some of these. Kelly, did you want to just comment about the...
And while she's coming down, I think I hadn't seen it yet, so that's great. I guess the plan and the content, as much as the money, is of interest.
Yeah.
I was saying goodbye to Dr. Johnson, so I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They had made a motion, Kelly, that the staff be asked to take some of these recommendations about the website and come back with a plan. I was just pointing out that there is a specific item in the proposed 2012 budget. I don't know how much overlap there is between what the proposal that you and Kathy are making as part of the 2012 budget and some of the specific recommendations that the DU students made tonight.
Well, we have asked either 5 or 6 years straight for funds to retain the services of a professional company to assist us in redesigning the website. I used a plug number of $50,000. Kathy actually has done some research in the last couple days and has looked at a bunch of other cities, including Centennial and Denver, and some throughout the nation that have redesigned their websites. I agree it does need to be redesigned. The website really has no line item other than the webmaster's salary, and this website has been built over 10 years, 11 years from scratch to get to the point where it is today. I had some concerns about some of the things that they were saying about the bounce, and we can talk about that in more depth at some other time. But they did see a big spike at 4th of July. But if it's right there on the home page and you have 80% of the people that went to the website that day wanted to know what time the fireworks show started or where it was located, and it's right there and they saw it, then they left. And there's some other issues with that too. But anyway, it hasn't risen to the level of getting the support of the budget team because we haven't heard people express a lot of concern about the design of the website. I mean, we've felt internally that we'd like to go in and try and clean it up and make it a little more intuitive, as they discussed. But there's certainly a price tag associated with it. So
So I think you'll have a fairly in-depth discussion about this at your budget workshop in the middle of September.
Well, and maybe what more or less the intent of the motion here is, given the kind of information we heard here, where the opportunity to maybe engage some of the interns and or some of the other resources they talked about, that preparatory to that conversation, if you guys are able to maybe get with them and talk through sort of an action plan and what maybe a refined type of number would be. I think that's more or less what I was looking for, was how do you take some of their concepts, integrate it with your guys' thinking, put some dollar amounts around it and come back with some sort of an action plan that council could consider and or potentially approve.
I can have something for you to look at during your budget discussions.
Okay. I mean, it's a motion. I can withdraw it if there's no, or we could vote on it.
Vote on it and get success.
Oh, let's do it.
The vote is actually, I don't think it can be 7 in favor. The vote is 6, unless he gave his proxy to somebody. The vote is 6 in favor. The motion is approved.
Yes.
I wanted to make one other motion. The amount of work that was done by the DU students was considerable. Certainly, as they expressed, there was a large piece of it that was educational and orientation. But at the outset of the project, they indicated, of course, there was no cost to the city. Of course, if the city were interested in providing some remuneration as far as our gratitude for their efforts, that would certainly be accepted. I'd like to propose that, or make a motion that we give them a token of our appreciation in the amount of $3,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appropriate $3,000.
And I guess the other thing I didn't mention, I think we've looked at some of the professional activities that would have encompassed the amount of work that was done, and certainly the price tags were substantially north of $50,000 to $60,000, if not more. So I think in terms of conveying the sense that we do very much appreciate their effort, this is certainly appropriate.
And which fund would we be taking this out of?
Oh, open space. No. Oh, probably council discretionary. I assume we have, I don't know where the budget am. I haven't looked at the budget.
I don't look at council's budget. $3,000 from the council's budget, Kelly? Okay.
Oh, where is this going? I mean, this is not
to the
party
University
time,
of Denver.
To the University of Denver.
To the marketing
I would
program?
assume it'd go to the Daniel School to support marketing programs.
And I think you could see from the caliber of students, these are not folks that are wet behind the ears as far as professionals are concerned. You heard some of their background, and you only saw a small sampling of the class. There were at least another 20 or so students that have left Denver for some of them gone back to their home countries, and so it was actually an international team of folks that were involved in the study, and folks that ranged all the way from some of the folks that you heard here, but certainly regional directors of marketing for some very large brands in the United States that are involved in this. And so caliber of student that Dr. Johnson and Dr. Myers brought to the table was certainly exceptional.
Well, I'm going to vote against this, mainly because the staff members, the professors, already are paid on salary. Mm-hmm. The money wouldn't go to the students who are the ones that did the majority of the work, which doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for the amount of work that they put in and did for the class. It's just that I'm not sure that this is the most appropriate way of showing that.
Whoops. I'd like to do it, but I'm not inclined to do it, and I think we would honor them instead by using whatever money we have available, pittance of 3,000 or whatever, to try to implement at least something that they've proposed. So it's not any kind of negative comment about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to, if we do that, I think certainly that'll be a budget item as we go forward. I just think this says, hey, we appreciate the effort.
Further discussion? Okay, council ready to vote. The motion is to appropriate $3,000 from the council's budget and give it to DU to symbolize our gratitude.
The vote is 2 in favor with Councilwoman Cole, Councilman Clark, Councilwoman Brinkman, and Councilman Trujillo voting no. The motion fails.
Okay. That brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is appointing a new city manager. And I'll make the motion, if you all don't mind. And I move that we appoint Mike Penny as the Littleton city manager starting on October 3rd.
Second.
Third.
And you want to make it his formal name?
Michael Penny.
Michael Penny. I don't know his middle name, but that'll be close enough.
From Frisco.
Yes. We had something like 70 applicants turned in for the position. The Mercer Group narrowed that down to 12, which they thought was a reasonable size. That was the candidates that they considered to be the A-level candidates that also met the qualifications and experience requirements that we had. We met and narrowed that list of 12 down to 5 finalists, and then interviewed 5 finalists, and frankly, it was an outstanding group of finalists. We thought that we had a very good group of people to choose from. They were all outstanding candidates. It really came down to who was the best fit for the city of Littleton. Any one of them could have done an excellent job as city manager. And with our interviewing, with the staff interviewing, us discussing with the staff and amongst the council, we came to the conclusion that Mike Penny was the best fit for the city of Littleton, and we're expecting great things in the future. So,
and a footnote to it, we have one council member who is not present this evening. He knew Michael before the interview process through the CML board, and he would certainly, Michael would know himself, but is in support of Michael's taking the position.
yes, thank you for pointing that out. All right, ready to vote? The motion is to appoint the city manager.
The vote is 6 in favor. The motion's approved.
All right, any other business? Then we're adjourned.